Hi there, welcome back. I'm Sheldon McLeod, and this is Thinking Out Loud, presented to you here on the SaltWire Network. And if you're not a subscriber to SaltWire, you should. Perhaps take some time to do that, because there's all kinds of great work being done by my colleagues. In fact, there was a story from Francis Campbell yesterday, and this is quite a bold headline. CUPE school support workers call for a living wage as strike date approaches. And, Frank gets into some of the details here. He spoke with the CUPE president, Nan McFadgen. Headline was obviously about this deadline coming up, and 5,400 CUPE workers who bus Nova Scotians to school, support their educational needs while they're in class, want to be paid a living wage for their services. That's what the union leader says. Talk a little bit about this. I'm joined by Chris Melanson. He's been involved with CUPE now for a number of years. He's also worked as an educational program associate. Did I get that right?
Assistant. Yep.
So what is an EPA?
Educational program assistants today, they work with children with cognitive disorders. A lot of people frame that work as we do social setting, personal care, the odd academic support for children with specific needs, often special needs. And we do work a lot with children with behavioral concerns, those students that enter into the public schools with the need for a behavior plan of sorts. We're often tasked with helping those students manage their day, get through a school day, and get the best out of the education.
Now, how does a student be assigned? How are you assigned to a student as an EPA?
Well, that's really left to student services with each individual regional center. What they do is there's testing and different things that go on in places. A student would enter into the school system, and if they have a need that's known up front, obviously they'd be assigned some support. The learning center teachers, resource teachers, different teams, they come together and they determine which of those students that are in the building need that additional support. Oftentimes we have EPAs or TAs or EAs, as they're known across the province. They're assigned to a learning center. They may be assigned to a group of children. They may be assigned to do one-on-one work. And, there's different individual plans that are put in place for these students. And we try to support their schooling and their everyday school life to the best that we can.
Are you school or facility specific? Do you follow a student through their educational career?
Not so much through the career. There have been times where, as you get specific training and as you get to build a rapport with those students, you may be asked to continue on to a different grade level. But basically, an EPA per se is assigned to a school, and they're there to support any of the children that fall under that umbrella of needs.
And as you say, more than 2 decades in this job, how has that role changed or evolved?
Wow. Drastically. I started when prior to the amalgamation of HRM back in 1994. There was a lot more of one-on-one assignments at that time. You worked with a specific child. And if you were lucky enough to obtain a permanent position in a school, you could work with that child, depending on whether it's an elementary or junior high school, for anywhere from 3 to 7 years. There was a lot of one-on-one support. There were different needs. We did do a lot more of academic support for children. So if, let's say, a child had vision issues, they still want to get an education. They want to be tested. Maybe it was reading and writing out the responses for things like that. Sometimes, depending on the need of the child, there could be a lot of personal care. The education centers, probably about 25 years ago, moved away from congregated classrooms, if you will, and these students were at that time more introduced to the mainstream students and part of the classrooms, and that's really where my classification sort of got up and running. We were part of a class, following along with those students, helping wherever you could, providing interventions, trying to be a voice, if you will, or a buffer between the teacher who's assigned to teach all of the children in the class, and then take some of that modified work and be able to implement it for those kids. So over the years, it's the job has changed. I do say this with respect. I find that I'm an anomaly, if you will. I've been doing it for 28 years. We do find with the current state, and it's been that way for about the past 6, 7, 8 years, a lot of people use these specific classifications, and we'll talk about EPAs as a bit of a stepping stone, as a resume builder. They don't end up staying in the sector, and there's a lot of reasons for that. The job can be very trying. It's very tiring. There does come some violence and safety concerns when you're working with children that have cognitive or behavioral issues, and of course, very prominent in today's news and with all of our members, the wages.
Is it a fair comment to say that an EPA is essential to the inclusionary model for education?
Absolutely. When you look at the different roles, the different jobs, the different tasks that all classifications, regardless of bargaining unit, what they have, an EPA is absolutely 100% integral to to a child's education. It takes a special person to work with special children, and teachers do a great job of delivering the curriculum that they're assigned to. But not every child learns the same, and not every child enters a building or leaves the building the same way. Each and every child out there are individual. An EPA is often that person that child can lean on for supports, even just as additional set of ears, encouragement, and what we hear from parents and actually some children after they get through the system. They probably wouldn't have made it through without the supports. And again, specific to the EPA classification, they know these kids because they sit with them, they work with them. They often spend lunch times, downtime, social times with them in the school setting. They're integral. I believe that all of the educational support staff that are out there are truly integral to the learning of these kids.
You described it as perhaps a career stepping stone. And what I've learned over life is that any job that there is a time where supply might exceed demand, wages sometimes reflect that you don't always see the top dollar. Or conversely, people who are paid more are much more likely to put up with more. This news article says this is about money. Is this about money?
This is... I would say the biggest point of this is about money. It absolutely is. Without having replacement staff, people get sick, people get injured, and that happens. And that happens in all jobs out there. Where there are not higher wages, there's no retention and there's no replacement staff coming in behind. We do know that there are schools in this province that are not meeting the needs that children have, and it's a staffing crisis. We've heard our allies, our friends, the NSTU, talk about the fact that there's no replacement staff out there for them as well. And when you're looking at more lucrative opportunities, whether it be in different sectors or different provinces, people are leaving our sector. Educational support staff are finding it tough to be able to live in today's world, in this province, without having 2 or 3 jobs. The wages, we're behind, and alluding to inflation and alluding to the cost of increased cost of fuels and groceries, rent, mortgages, if you're able to obtain a mortgage. Social events, entertainment things are outside the scope of many of our members. We also experience a high number of precarity. Many of our members aren't able to obtain a 100% position. So they're working a 50 or an 80% position. They're doing different jobs with different bargaining units in the sector. We have a lot of members. We have members that are EPAs and are RNs and nurses in other sectors. We have members that are working for different news media outlets that are dropping papers off in the early morning, doing those deliveries, getting home, rushing home, having a shower, and then going and heading into a less than 100% position. We have members that are picking up shifts in fast food restaurants, coffee shops, those kind of things. And, what we hear from them as well is they're making just as much money as a substitute employee that comes in. So the wages aren't keeping up with the demand. Staff, they're doing the best with what they have, but they need more.
The right to fair and open collective bargaining, it's protected under the charter, and not to preclude that part of this conversation, because obviously you're still in that negotiation. The story from Frank suggests that process is stalled. The minister's asking for the members to perhaps vote on what's on the table. I want to ask Chris, what happens if EPAs go on strike? What happens to the students they support?
Well, we have 7 different centers, regional centers. We have the CSAP, French Canadian School Board as well. It's definitely more than just the EPAs that are out there that could be affected by this, but we're not 100% sure what could happen. We go to work every day and hope for the best. Hope to work with a fully staffed group, and hope to provide some great learning experiences and settings for children. We are at a stalemate right now. Our members are telling us they need more, and if that doesn't happen, nobody wants to go on strike. Nobody wants to stop doing what we do. Bottom line, and we've said it before, not one of our members, regardless of classification, but speaking about an EPA's perspective, nobody became an EPA to get rich. That's just not why we do this job. We do this job because we can relate to children. We enjoy working with them. You get quite the boost when you're able to watch a child go through a school year with successes. It's difficult to do that. I mean, the morale is down when you're looking at other sectors, and believe you me, every single person out there that gets a wage increase, be that a nurse or a CCA, that's all well deserved. The time is, and our members are saying this, the time is now for us to get a deserved wage as well. Our members were more than willing to step up and work in a different sector during COVID. We're not looking for frontline COVID pay. We're not looking for any of those things. But when you're seeing a 23% wage increase for one classification in another sector, and government thinking that 6.5% is going to tide you over for now, and hopefully you can do better in the next round and not move away from their mandate of wage. That's not sitting well with our members. We were surprised. I would love to say pleasantly surprised, but we were surprised that the members came out in the numbers they did to take a vote for job action. 97.5% across the province for our 5,400 plus members, and that speaks volumes. They've had enough, and they're tapped out. They're burning out. They don't recover if they don't take the time when they're ill, and they don't take the time when they're ill because they know there's nobody in behind them. So it's a tough situation. Nobody wants to experience it. Nobody wants to see anybody on a picket line. But sadly, this is the point where we're at.
Sounds like not necessarily just a fair wage, but a living wage is what you're asking for.
Absolutely. The majority of our members, and we say that with confidence, the majority of our members are lucky to obtain a 100% position, or a position, whether that be, in an EPA, ECE, any of those classifications that work within the school, or bus drivers that are trying to get those coveted shifts, if you will, that have full hours, that pay a half decent salary for a week's work. We have members in certain classifications that do lunchtime and school ground support, and those are only a couple of hours a day. We have casual custodians that the work is out there. We know the schools need to be cleaned, and we want to have great situations like that can obtain more hours. It's difficult when the average or the median wage in this province is $35,000, and you can look at the starting salaries of what government tells us integral classifications to the education of young Nova Scotians, and many of those are well under that number. It's not right. The members they don't feel respected. They don't feel respected by government for providing a service that they're telling the public they will get when they're looking at the average wages out there, and we just don't meet up. We don't match up.
Week and a half, 10 days till the 21st, a 48-hour strike notice after that, unless, of course, a deal is met. You've seen the provisional offer, I assume, through the media. Is that something you feel comfortable commenting on, or is this 97.5% united to get to the table and strike a deal that both the executive and the membership is happy with?
Absolutely. There is no executive member of any of these locals, anybody that sits around council, that's okay with this wage pattern being presented. Yes, there are some intricate details out there, but our members need more, and they need more now. And if the employers don't think they're going to see less people leaving for other jobs, they're going to have to come to the table with a higher wage percentage, a higher pattern. We started out at a level, and everybody totally recognizes bargaining is a lot about give and take. And with different governments, we've seen that it's also been about retention. We don't want to give anything up. We totally understand that the employers and government don't want to either. However, they do need to compensate the people that work for them and provide great services at a higher rate. And that's where we are. So, to answer it in sort of two parts, we're more than willing to go back to the table and have fruitful, meaningful discussions about an actual living wage, an increase that's going to keep people happy, keep them respected, keep them in the sector and doing the jobs they love doing. If that doesn't happen, we're counting down the days to when a work stoppage could happen. And again, nobody wants to do that. We recognize we have members that could possibly make more money by going on strike. That's not something we don't take lightly. We recognize there are classifications out there that won't make the same amount of money, but we've not seen this in our sector and with our members being so united, being so willing to stand up and support each other. Government has to do better for all.
Chris Melanson, anything else you'd like to add?
No, it's a difficult time for all. We totally understand that there's a lot of people watching what's happening, a lot of people that are concerned and want to know more. We're doing the absolute best we can to support and represent our members. We speak on their behalf. We are still holding on to hope that government is going to come back to us and have fruitful talks. We don't want government out there offering services that they can't staff, that they can't keep doing. We provide a great service. We love doing what we do, and we know now is the time for them to do a little bit better and respect them all.
As mentioned, Chris Melanson, an educational program assistant. Thank you for this, and thank you for sharing today.
Thanks so much, Sheldon. We appreciate the opportunity.